The Apple event just ended, and here's a quick iPhone 15 hands-on sharing. The size remains the same, 6.1 and 6.7 inches. The body structure and shape are quite similar with the iPhone 14. The whole lineup is not compatible with Dynamic Island. The notch that has been on iPhone for 6 years is now gone. If you look closely, you can still see the physical part of the Dynamic Island, consisting of front-facing camera and a 3D depth camera. If you wake up the screen, it's the same as the iPhone 14 Pro, the same size Dynamic Island. When the Dynamic Island first came out a year ago, people may have thought that it was just a trick to cover up the flaws of the screen. But after a year of third-party apps adaptation, the usefulness of Dynamic Island is slowly starting to show. In addition to show important information, it can also display the license plate number when you're taking a taxi, to show how far away is your takeout, the departure time and seat number for trains and flights, point to the direction when navigating, music playback control, and so on. Because now all iPhones has Dynamic Island, in the future, you might find a lot of applications are actually enough with the island's form, so you don't need to open it frequently. I do have a question before the hands-on. The regular version does not have ProMotion and is still in 60Hz refresh rate. Will there be lagging effects during the pop-up animation of the Dynamic Island? I actually tried a few times. If you have to stare at it, you will find it's not as smooth as the Pro. In addition, the glass used on the back is the new dual ion process. This process melts the color molecules directly into the metal, and the previous regular version was all glossy, but now it also has a bit of matte finish that does not stick to fingerprints. And the weight is still lighter than the Pro. The Pro model uses titanium frame. Titanium's weight and density is only more than half of the stainless steel, but the hardness, strength is much more stronger. Because of this property, it can provide a stronger protection to the screen. Therefore, we can see the bezel of the 15 Pro is narrower than the 14 Pro. The bezel narrowed down from 2.14mm to 1.78mm. A small detail, this titanium is actually aluminum metal as base, not to affect the heat dissipation. But if it was pure titanium, the surface would be worse than stainless steel because easier to knock off small dents. I don't know if this alloy Apple added will improve it. We'll give it a try when we buy our own iPhone. Most importantly, the Pro's overall weight is lighter. Both versions of Pros dropped about 20 grams. 6.1 on the hand is feeling very obvious. You'll miss the mini iPhone. Pro Max is no longer applying heavy pressure on your thumb. You can make a safe purchase now. iPhone 15 Pro surprises many people is because the silent switch button is now gone. This switch has been on iPhone since the first generation, and it has been on iPhone for 15 years. The replacement is a customizable action button. After you tap the button, the Taptic engine inside the iPhone will give you a satisfying feedback. Short press the button is to display the status, and long press the button is to switch the function. This action button can currently do mute, flashlight, shortcut, accessibility, camera, note voice recording, focus mode, translation, magnifying glass, 9 functions of customization. So why Apple abandon the old tradition? Did you notice that the 9 features that are quickly enabled do not need Face ID? Apple is using the physical button to prioritize apps that need to be used in a hurry over the rights of unlocking. At this point, you might understand why the old iOS version made a quick open version of apps like notes and cameras that doesn't involve personal privacy. Now, you can use these features with just an action button. The next important thing to talk about is this Type-C port. Can this Type-C port be used without an Apple-recognized cable? Or will there be some restrictions? The answer is no. We've gone through all over the Apple website, and the conclusion is that it can be used with any compatible charging brick and cable. If you translate the official website's 30 minutes charge to 50%, it means that the charging power is still around 25 watts. With this power, you don't even need an eMarker chip. A regular PD charging brick and a quality USB cable will work just fine. The data transmission rate is USB 2.0 on the regular version, and the Pro version finally goes up to USB 3.0. This reason and scenario Apple gives is that you can record 4K 60 footage directly to an external SSD. Moreover, this new port brings more possibilities for external devices. This time, both iPhones can connect to 4K 60 displays that have USB-C ports. Only it doesn't have PC modes like Samsung DeX. Devices that used to support Lightning cables can still be used, but there's no longer the need to connect to a converter and then a power cable. You can even look forward to cheaper and more varied cell phone gadgets like microphones and thermal cameras. The most important internal changes is this 3nm A17 Pro chips in the Pros. As the world's first mass-produced chip on 3nm node, the transistor count has been boosted from 16 billion in A16 to 19 billion, catching up with the M2. The 3nm this time is likely to be TSMC's N3B, which is theoretically a cross-node upgrade from the N4. However, the A17's performance as described in the event is hardly satisfying. The CPU single-core performance is only 10% higher than the A16, and since the core frequency of the A17 is still uncertain, but from the experience, the frequency of the first generation of this cross-node process is more conservative. The CPU frequency of the A17 is likely to be a bit lower than the A16, and so the IPC increase may be greater than 10%. So this is a significant upgrade for IPC since iPhone 12's A14 chip. The GPU has been upgraded from 5 cores in the A16 to 6 cores, but Apple said that the GPU performance increase is only about 20%, which means no upgrades on per core performance. So there's a good chance that there won't be much change to the IPC. The extra boost has been placed into the new ray tracing core, which is officially claimed to be 4 times performance of the ray tracing ability. The new 3nm doesn't seem to have a huge advantage in power consumption either, and Apple did not claim a huge improvement on battery life. It seems that the N3B on the A17 Pro has only a density advantage over the N4, and I also asked Apple about it, and they said the main improvement is doubling of the AI performance, and why Apple has been so obsessed with AI performance over the years, and they said the machine learning can now run locally. Does it mean that Apple is going to do large models that don't collect user privacy at all in the future? Then this development might be too slow. The camera is basically the same as we predicted. Both the regular and Pro series upgraded to 48 megapixels. However, the CMOS sizes are different, with the regular version having a single pixel of 1μ, which is the same size as the IMX766. It's not confirmed whether it's a dual-layer transistor, while the 15 Pro is still 1.22μ. Hardware parameters are not available at this time to get the details. I'll focus on a few areas where the improvements are more significant. We see so many 48 megapixel things, but I think this 48 megapixel is the first time to really implement the high pixel. With the 4-in-1 process, 12 megapixels photo synthesized with 48 megapixels photo, combined with the lights and pixels, and finally got a 24 megapixel photo. In the past, the high pixel mode on Android phones was more of a pure pixel boost, with less practical use. If you click the 1x button, you can quickly switch between 3 focal lengths of 24, 28, and 35mm, and you can set one of them as default. With the main camera focal lengths getting shorter and shorter, now most phones have a 24mm main camera, which is already considered to be ultra-wide. The frame contains everything, and it's difficult to grasp the main object. There's a certain amount of extension distortion when you get too close, and now there's a high-quality 24 megapixel, then the 35mm focal length can be regained. Now, most of the focal lengths are capable of smart portrait mode. You can adjust the focal and blur after the shot, which makes it very practical. Then, there's the Pro Max exclusive Periscope telephoto, which technically can't be called Periscope, but should be called Folded Optical Path Telephoto, realizing a native 120mm telephoto with sensor shift OIS. Comparing to the traditional way of periscope telephoto that needs stance the CMOS, iPhone 15 Pro Max telephoto camera uses the special prism and do reflects 4 times to expand the optical path. You can see the imaging is next to the length. Huawei had used a similar design to solve the same problem, and I think currently there are only 3 companies that do a good job on telephoto cameras: Apple, Huawei, and Sony. Lastly, and most interesting to me, using the iPhone 15 Pro telephoto and primary cameras to shoot spatial videos that can be viewed on the Vision Pro. My prediction was realized so quickly. But with 2 cameras so close together, there is likely to be missing information that can only be seen with 2 eyes. After the event, I also asked Apple about this, but the reply said that they need to wait for further information to be released. Finally, the iPhone 15, in addition to the 3nm chips to be measured in detail, gives me the feeling that the change is still not very big. The dynamic island, bezel, buttons, these are in the direction of Apple's step-by-step optimization. Chip rumors with ARM and Qualcomm contract renewal, indicating that we cannot count on iPhone's huge performance improvement, or AI big model, or signal improvements in short term. But I still think the iPhone 15 is worth to buy. The reason is the new replacement of the C ports. We all know that Apple don't change iPhone ports very frequently, and this change will be used for the next decade. So, where's the magic of Apple's innovation? Could the most be on the Vision Pro? Well, time is running out, so make sure to stay tuned for our channel for detailed iPhone 15 review in a few days. We will be able to solve more and more mysteries for you. We'll see you next time.